Welcome to the English Homemaker podcast, a podcast where we discuss all things home. A realistic but fresh view of homemaking from the suburbs of the south of England. I'm your host, Alissa Evelyn. Welcome to episode 27 of the English Homemaker. Hello everybody, how are you today? Today's episode, I hope, will be fun because I'm going to talk about food. And I love food, you all know that. But before I get into the fun part, which is telling you what we've been eating, what we're going to eat, what's on the menu plan, I want to tell you kind of how we arrived at doing this 14-day pantry challenge, because it is a story filled with lots of humility, some shame, and a lot of honesty, hopefully. And I feel like some of you will relate to this. So the short story is that a week ago, I sat down and did the budget spreadsheet, which, if you've listened to my budgeting episode in the past, you'll know I sit down, I write every transaction into an Excel spreadsheet and into different columns that highlight where the money is going/gone. And I realised that I'd hit my budget for the whole month already in the food category, which was super embarrassing because I'd promised to my husband that I would 100% stick to the budget for food this year. I wouldn't go over it and it would be in control. There were another couple of things playing on my mind as I saw that number come up on the spreadsheet. And first was, I've been listening to a book called The Salt Path, which I hope some of you have read because it's a fantastic book. I've been listening to it on BorrowBox, which is a free library app, which I hugely recommend. But it's also coming out as a movie this year. So if you don't read it or listen to it, you can watch it this year as well. It is a phenomenal true story about a woman and her husband who become homeless through some set of circumstances and decide to walk the Southwest Coast path for a few months. They're surviving on £48 a week for everything that they need, like literally everything, not just food, but everything. And it's just, you can't really be reading something like that and feel like it's okay to have the food budget that we do. And it is very, very challenging, or I found it very challenging. And then the other thing was I've been watching a bit of Immy Lucas, who is Sustainably vegan, who has been doing a no-buy or low-buy year. And that has also challenged me just to really face up to the costs that I'm spending and just be honest about them and not be okay with them, but the more I look at each individual transaction, I want to ask, did we need to buy that? Why did we buy that? Why did we spend that money? Was it conscious? Was it something we were happy spending money on? Did it fulfill something? What was the need related to that cost? It is a fact that in the last year, so in 2024, food costs and food prices rose by 7%. And then already this year, I think it's already another 1% just in the last month. So it does feel sort of crazy how much food has risen by. And when I go on my sort of favourites on the Sainsbury's app, I can see the prices rising before my very eyes by 5p or 30p or something like that. And you just think, I mean, at what point do I just get completely priced out of buying things? And realising that I've just been really stubborn. I've put my foot down for the last 5 years where the prices have just kept rising and rising and rising, saying, no, we'll eat the same way. I don't want to change. I like what we eat. And I think seeing that number sat there, I just had to realise that we cannot keep going on the way that we're going on. We just can't. It's not sustainable and we keep blowing our budget. And I don't want to do that anymore. Now, I am queen of excuses when it comes to the food section of the budget, and I always have many, many excuses. And one of my best ones this month was that I've been meal prepping, filling my new freezer, my new chest freezer in the garage full of food ready for when the baby arrives, and it is almost full. So certainly some of the budget has gone into filling that freezer with really nice, nourishing foods. But I think honestly, it's probably quite a small percentage. One of the very positive things about the crazy nesting that I've been doing for the several months is that the freezer was also full of meat and our cupboards filled with tins of beans and other things and packets of things and lots of food. So I worked out that we probably had enough food in the freezer and cupboards and fridge to last us a couple of weeks if I planned it. So I thought, okay, I will sit and work out if I can plan 2 weeks worth of meals with what we already have, so I don't need to shop again. And I did. I've managed to figure out that we had more than enough food. Probably, actually, well, kind of some things probably just about enough food in the cupboards and freezer and fridge to last us 2 weeks. There are a couple of things that I have said we are allowed to buy outside of not buying anything for the next couple of weeks. Milk, eggs, apples and potatoes, because with those 4 things you can make lots of things. You can keep yourself satiated and just happy. I mean, there's so many delicious things you can make from those 4 things. So those were on the list of things that we were allowed to buy, and I am just about to buy eggs halfway through the challenge because we are almost out. And I've actually took the money out for the milk at the very beginning of the challenge because I pay with cash at the farm shop for that. Now, with the mere mention of the words farm shop, I know some of you are going to be like, well, there's your problem, Alissa. You're buying things from the farm shop. That's your problem. Just buy it from the supermarket like everyone else. It's much cheaper. Now, one of the things I've been experimenting with, I don't know, over the last several years, specifically the last few months, is how I want my principles and values to reflect in the things I purchase. What do I believe in enough? And you'll know this if you've listened to episodes with me and my brother. What do I believe in enough that I feel I want to put my foot down, make a change on and say, no, this is how we do it as a family. This is how I choose to live. This is how I choose to nourish my family and my children. Put my foot down, make a line in the sand and just go for it and say, no, this is a choice that we are making because we believe it is important. For a variety of reasons, whether that's ethics or health, politics, no matter what that is. And whilst I know lots of people do not get the luxury, and I guess it is a luxury to say those things, we do. We still have a budget that allows for some choices like that, which I'm really, really grateful for. But it has been in the experimentation, I suppose, of our budget and how to incorporate those principles into our budget where I think we've probably blown it. And by we, I mean I do accept full responsibility. So some of the things I've experimented with are I have been getting an Able and Cold delivery box. It's expensive, but it does things that a supermarket cannot do, which is to provide me organic fruit and veg of a variety. I can tell exactly where it came from. I can adjust the box as I want to. It comes with no plastic. And there are just certain things I can get in that box that I cannot get from Sainsbury's because their range is slightly more limited when it comes to the organic things. And the quality is definitely higher from Able and Cole. Another thing I've been experimenting with is we've got a lovely farm shop with a butcher's sort of big butcher section that's already pre-wrapped and some of it's frozen. And so I've been experimenting with going there and doing a kind of freezer fill full of meat, buying bigger cuts of meat, different cuts of meat, just trying different things out. And I have to say, it does feel really good when you have a freezer full of meat. It feels luxurious. It feels comforting, I guess. It's just a really nice thing to be able to sort of shop from your own fridge, freezer, cupboards. It feels so much better than feeling that sense of reliance that we have on the supermarket. And to not have to go to the supermarket for longer lengths of time just makes me really happy. I don't know how many of you are aware of Three Rivers Homestead and her Three Rivers Challenge, but I think it's been on my radar for several years now. It's a really sort of strong hashtag that gets used a lot on Instagram, hashtag Three Rivers Challenge. And it's basically the idea for homesteaders to use up the things that they've canned and preserved in the last growing season so they can kind of make way for the next growing season and make sure they are actually using the things they've preserved. Now, I am just a little homemaker from the suburbs of England who has 1/14 of an acre, and about all I preserve is jam and marmalade. And then we do have enough jam and marmalade to keep us going for some time. And also in the last year, we did grow at the allotment enough garlic for most of the winter. We're still going through, we've still got lots left, and squashes. So we have got those two things, and I've really enjoyed having those things sort of on the side, waiting, ready to go. It feels really very positive and luxurious to have those things. Okay, shall we get into the food part? Shall I talk you through the menu plan? Let's go for it. So I haven't got lunches on the menu plan. I invariably never plan lunches because lunches are either a sandwich, some toast and soup, or leftovers. And that's about it, really, often with a piece of fruit. I have got snacks written on here because the kids have to take a snack to school, and so that needs some prior planning because otherwise that cost gets completely out of control with pre-packaged foods. So let me walk you through breakfast, because breakfast is obviously my favourite meal of the day. It's one of the ones you can make super nourishing, super nutritious, and also super cheap, because eggs are a very cheap source of protein and they're a very good source of protein. And I make my own bread, so I'm hoping that for the next week I've got enough different types of flour. But one of the great things about doing a challenge, however long it is that you get the chance to be creative if you run out of something. And I've certainly got enough different types of flours to keep me going for a while. So I've got sourdough pancakes, egg and toast, fruit porridge, rice pudding, oat cakes, scrambled eggs and toast, Dutch baby, and then basically it repeats. One of the other things that we did allow ourselves as a bit of a luxury, although it's a questionable luxury, is if people want to walk to Lidl to get some pastries, then that's okay, because Lidl's pastries are super cheap. They even have butter in some of their croissants, so they're not entirely awful. And then that's sort of almost cost neutral if they've walked to the shop to buy them at the weekend with Daddy, and it costs us like £1.50 or something. The oat cakes, the sourdough pancakes, Dutch babies, all those things will incorporate a little bit of sourdough, and having it on the menu plan means that I remember to do those things the day before so that we can actually eat them on time. This morning I had a little bit of a faff because yesterday we had rice pudding for breakfast, which I put in the oven the night before so it's ready on a timer for when we need it in the morning. But I just felt like we couldn't have porridge 2 days in a row and everyone was sort of desperate for something else. So I used the last egg that we had and just made my very typical English pancakes this morning and spread some jam and some of the last bit of, we had some crunchy hazelnut spread. The Bon Maman one is really lovely and doesn't have palm oil in it, so highly recommend that when it's on offer. But we were just about finishing that up, but I spread it on for the kids this morning and served it up to them rather than them spreading it, so that we used slightly less. And that went down all right. It's my basic recipe is 4 ounces of flour, half a pint of milk and an egg. And that's been handed down from my dad since I can remember. He gave me that recipe and I've never forgotten it. And you can add in 2 eggs if you're feeling luxurious and you want something a bit more crepey. But it's just my kind of go-to if I'm a bit stuck. And if you've got milk or milk substitute, you're pretty much golden. You can use any kind of flour really with it as well. So I use like a gluten-free plain flour, but you can use half buckwheat, half gluten-free plain, regular plain buckwheat, regular plain, whatever you want. The other thing about making sure I've got a menu plan for breakfast is things like porridge are really much better if they're soaked overnight, and it makes the cooking in the morning more like it's quicker and it's more nutritious. The one on the menu for tomorrow morning is oat cakes, and I haven't made oat cakes in ages, but the whole family loves oat cakes. And to make your own oat cakes is really very, very easy. It's just a sort of yeasted, or in my case, a sourdough yeast pancake, and you make it mostly with oats, and hence they're called oat cakes. They're kind of thick, and you usually eat it with like beans and cheese, sometimes eggs, sometimes bacon if you're feeling fancy. And I think sometimes also tinned tomatoes, although my husband would probably correct me on that one. It's a sort of strange Staffordshire thing that he likes to do, put tinned tomatoes with breakfast things. So that's sort of it really for breakfasts. It just repeats, and those are our favourites. They're quick, they're delicious, and they're not hugely expensive. Then for snacks for the kids for school, I have bought, prior to this, a couple of multi-packs of Pom Bears and like lentil crisps. So we're saving those for like the days where they need a little bit of extra energy. Today they went in with some cut up apple from the Abel and Cole box we got the week prior. And then I think there's like a couple of random snacky bits hanging around, like lurking around, like packets of shortbread biscuits or like fruit rolls. There's a couple of those. And then I have made it a mission of mine in this next couple of weeks to come up with some kind of homemade treat that they can take in. And it's a little bit complicated because it's got to be egg-free and nut-free to take into school, which kind of X's out the majority of my like biscuit or cake recipes, and then leaves me with either the crumbly ones, which they can't take in. But I did think the other day, I thought, wonder if I could get like a pot where it's got like a split pot and you could have homemade crackers in one side and like little bits of cheese in the other side, or like a triple one where you could then have like a dip. So I thought, I might look out for a pot that's a bit like that. That's like a kind of, you could basically make your own kind of like cheese and crackers dip sort of situation, because they'd really like that. It wouldn't be super expensive. There'd be no eggs or nuts in it. It would be healthy. So I don't know. I'm getting creative when it comes to snacks in my head, but it hasn't turned into anything practical yet. I would absolutely love your suggestions for egg-free, nut-free school snacks, because honestly, I feel like it's a minefield that can only be resolved by buying a packaged snack. And I feel like that's just wrong. And I feel like I just need more ideas. So please DM me some ideas, send me what you usually have, and I'm going to try really hard. Maybe I'll do a whole episode about snacks because I'll like crack the code and figure it out. I think I'd be all right if it just had to be nut-free, but the fact it has to be egg-free means that I can't make them Fabreton and send that into school, which I would otherwise do. I can't send them in with like a boiled egg. I can't send them in with a cookie. So maybe I need to experiment with biscuits and crackers. Maybe that's a good way of doing it. Okay, let's move on to dinners. So the first evening, which actually didn't count as one of the 14, we had baked potatoes with beans. I grated up like the last of the Christmas cheese and put it on the table, and then put some Parmesan with a grater. Parmesan is actually a super wonderful thing to have because it's very strong flavour, and then you don't need, and you grate it so finely, you just don't need as much of it. So I think cost per use is much better than like a coarsely grated organic cheddar. So we had beans and jacket potatoes, and then I made a kind of salad out of cucumber and a bit of yogurt, a grated carrot, dill, and some raisins. Mixed that all together, and that was really yummy next to it, although I don't know the kids had more than about a spoonful each, but it was there. And then because my kids are my kids and my son is genius, he looked at the menu plan that I'd already made and worked out that there was no tuna written anywhere on the menu plan, and that we had a couple of tins of tuna left in the cupboard, and asked if he could have some tuna on the side of his jacket potato, which I said yes to. And so we all kind of had a bit of everything, and I felt pretty good about that. But it was really interesting. The kids sort of, the way they eat their jacket potatoes, they left the skins, but then they were both like, oh, well, what we could do is we could roast the skins with a little bit of salt and pepper and sort of have them as like a crispy snack afterwards. So we did that, which went down also brilliantly well. So anyway, that wasn't even on the menu plan. So the first thing on the menu plan was pork belly. We'd got some strips from the farm shop and they were salted and peppered, and we had that with some roasted homegrown squash, some mashed potato and I think, some green beans from the freezer. I've always got peas and green beans in the freezer. That was very, very delicious. And we have a huge variety of condiments in our fridge. Probably most of you have quite a lot of condiments. I can't remember what we ate that one with, but we probably just got them all out on the table like usual, and everyone just picked their favourite. Then at the weekend, my husband made a roast beef dinner, which was gorgeous. Although I think we got slightly the wrong cut of beef to make it into roast beef, and it probably would have been better slow cooked, I think. But we ate it nonetheless, and we had it with all the trimmings. We had carrots and broccoli and potatoes, and I made a slow cooker red cabbage. Some of my lovely friends from Germany suggested that I make slow cooker red cabbage, and I've never turned back since, because it's so good. It's so much quicker and easier. There's so much less hands-on time, and it tastes amazing. The apples kind of melt into the red cabbage, and it's just so good. So that was really, really nice. We had that over 2 days, and then on Monday I made okonomiyaki, which is a definite favourite around here. It's basically cabbage with something else, pancake. And this time we had a little bit of pancetta left in the fridge, so I chopped that up really fine, cooked that, and then kind of made the pancake mix, put the cabbage in, and just sort of mixed it all together. I think a few spring onions were in there as well. And then you need a kind of sauce over the top. We actually happen to have in our Sincere Condiments fridge some okonomiyaki sauce. It's basically like a fruity HP kind of a sauce, I guess, and some mayonnaise. You usually have both. There's a variety of other toppings you can put on the top, but we often keep it really simple. And we had that with some frozen gyoza, which were in the freezer as well. Very, very delicious. Kids always love anything that's sort of Japanese, basically. And then last night we had veggie pasta with feta cheese, and I made that ahead of time, and it was just really nice. It was like basically all the vegetables in the fridge, and I made a pasta sauce with them, put some pasta with it, and bunged a bunch of feta in, mixed it up together, put parmesan on top, and put it in the oven. And people ate seconds. It was so good. I think part of the secret to a really good anything is homemade broth, and there's always homemade broth in my freezer or fridge, so that was really nice. And then today I've already got prepping some beef tacos. So I've got the beef chili going on the hob, and it's smelling really, really good in the house right now. So we'll have that over the course of the next 2 evenings. We'll have it with rice on one day, and then with corn tortillas the other day. And everyone loves Mexican. So there we go. I think we've got an avocado as well from a previous Abel and Cole box. And then we have egg fried rice and Mayak eggs. Mayak eggs are those like gorgeous eggs that you kind of part boil, like half boil, so they're still jammy in the middle, and then you soak them in like a spicy soy sauce, and you leave them for a night in the fridge, and they are just so good. I think I don't know, the translation from one of the languages is drug eggs, because they're so addictively delicious. So we've had those before. They're so nice. Toad in the hole, I feel like that goes without saying. Burgers, risotto, fish fingers and chips. And then there's a big joint of lamb in the freezer that will come out and be dinner for 2 nights. I'll make it into a stew in the slow cooker with some squash and some potatoes and carrots. And then the last night we've got spicy sausage pasta. The sausages are in the freezer, and that's another really quick, delicious dinner. So I'm very, very excited about all those things, and so happy that we've got a freezer full of burgers and sausages and big joints of lamb, because it makes it much more exciting and possible, and without which we would be eating beans and rice. And there will definitely be like bean salads and coleslaws and things like that kind of add a little freshness and a little extra crunch and a bit of colour to all these different meals. So don't think it's just as it is. And we'll be having probably a crumble, maybe, with some frozen fruit. and some custard as well, I suspect, that I make from scratch. So the puddings are definitely limited to the weekends, and I think we all like it that way. It means we enjoy it a bit more. I'd also like to, in this challenge time, and I already have done, is keep making things for the freezer. So I've already made a banana bread and popped that in the freezer for postpartum. And I'd also like to make either like a chickpea, a lentil, or a split pea kind of stew with some of the broth I have in the freezer. So I think that's pretty doable. And then last but not least, I really want to take everything out of my cupboards. So all of my tins, all of my packaged goods, all of the dry foods, I want to take them all out, just make sure everything is still in date, work with anything that's kind of like random and interesting that I bought. Like I found chestnut puree the other day. That would be quite fun to make a cake with someone in the next week. And stem ginger. Apparently I've got lots of stem ginger. I love stem ginger, but I don't really have a recipe I love that uses it. So I could maybe make some stem ginger biscuits. That would be fun. And then very last but not least, I want to take everything out the freezer that's the old freezer, not the new freezer that's like all organised ready for postpartum, but the old freezer, and just make sure I've used everything, because I think there's some old wild garlic pesto in there, for example, that I could use up. And there's probably some old sweet potato fries or something like that lurking in the bottom. So it would be good to just take that all out, clean it out and organise it before baby arrives. So that would be another great thing to do in the next week. So there you have it, my 14-day pantry challenge that I have self-inflicted so that we all grow and learn and stop being greedy and perfectionist foodies in this house. So now I'm going to go and prep my sourdough oat cakes. The sourdough has been rising whilst I've been chatting to you. And then I'm also going to go and buy some eggs because we are completely out. And I promised my daughter tomorrow morning we will have dippy eggs and soldiers. So I need to make good on my promise. Can I tell you something that's going on in my head? So I'm really I've been honest with you, but this is extra honest. It is going to be a struggle when I go to that supermarket to not feel like I ought to buy my husband a beer to go with the Mexican food, like I don't need to buy some salsa as an extra, or like extra cheese just in case, or maybe some sour cream because we don't even have any yogurt, so we'll just have to sort of skip that altogether. Maybe even like tortilla crisps or something that we might have as an extra on the side. I'm just going to skip all of that altogether, but it's like the first thing in my mind when I'm going to the shops is, oh, how else could I make this meal lovely? And that would have cost me an extra £10 to £15. And I'm guessing that is probably where our money's going, is on those things where I think, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we had X? But we don't need it. We've got tinned jalapenos, we've got cucumber. There's so many things that we can have alongside the dinner. So it's good. It's stretching me when I really, really did actually need to be stretched, and where we all needed to be stretched. So anyway, I hope this is inspiring to you guys. I hope you got something out of it. I'd love to hear how you're getting on with your food budgets and where you're at with that, because I feel like I can't be the only one in this situation who's sort of let it get a bit out of control, I guess, and who wants to rein it back in. So I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. As always, if you enjoyed it, there are 2 things I'd love if you could do. One is share the episode that is your favourite with a friend. And 2, go and leave me a review on whatever platform you're listening on. You can leave a review on Spotify or on Apple. And you can also leave a comment on YouTube if you're listening on there. Have a really wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for listening. Bye.